Are you getting fearful? Are you thinking of selling your bags with all this FUD, with all this geopolitical nightmare that we're seeing unfolding? Well, don't, because I'm going to show you how to stay in the markets, how to know it's still safe, and that we've still got a bull run coming for 2025, and it's going to be huge. So if you like the sound of that, join me for this week's show. Hello and welcome back to Prodigal Son Crypto with myself, Chris. Today we're going to be looking at various charts. We're going to be looking at Bitcoin dominance, the DXY, how altcoins are getting impacted, what Bitcoin's doing, and a whole lot of other charts. We're going to be looking at SUI, Solana, and how they compare against each other. And we're also going to be having a quick look at my portfolio, and I'm going to show you how I like to diversify things with a full-on degen bag. So if you like the sounds of that, here we are, and we're going to dive into it. So here we are. The fear and greed index is still showing 63 greed, which is pretty strong considering what's been going on in the world events at the moment. We've got the markets here, slightly red at the moment for the day in some areas. Some are green, small percentages. They're not really moving. They took a little drop on the news of, you know, what's been going on. I won't go into it too much on here. This is not a geopolitics channel, and I'm not going to get into what's right and what's wrong. I've got my opinions, but I'm not going to get too involved with that. You know, I don't believe in any sort of warfare anyway. I think it's all unnecessary. But yeah, it has an impact on the markets, and a short-term impact, I would say. Have you ever heard of the saying, buy the invasion? It's very true, because quite often, when you get some sort of invasion or attack, the markets take a knee-jerk reaction. They capitulate temporarily. But when you look at the charts and you zoom out at some of those events, and I might do a feature of that on another video, what you tend to see is that markets recover in a short period, whether it be some weeks or a month or so. It's usually pretty good. I'm going to hazard a bet that we're going to recover pretty quickly from what's going on. I don't think this what's going on is going to be a long period. I think it's going to be over quite quickly. Don't get me wrong. I think that what goes on could carry on for many years to come. But the impact on the markets at the moment, I think it's going to be short term, because of we're in a bull phase of this market. I believe we're in a stage where we're about to go nuts. I believe altcoin season's not far away, and we're going to look at some of the signs of that today. So yeah, you've got on the day, Bitcoin's sitting around just up 2.22%, Ethereum's down 0.808%, and you've got, you know, XRP up around 1%. You know, it's just an irrelevant day for the markets. You know, we've had the little downturn the other day. You know, Bitcoin was up at the highs, and you know, it come down to, where did it go down to? Here we go. It was up at around, you know, the 109 testing the 1010, and then it came down to as low as around 103, 102, and now it's back up at 105, trying to make a recovery. And the institutions seem to have been fudded on the news. The institutions are like the most emotional retail trader, it seems, sometimes with these ETFs. They sell at the lows, they buy at the highs. So they're like the inverse of the skilled trader. They saw a spot ETFs for ETH saw one outflow day after a 19-day inflow streak. The institutions have been loading up on ETH. But like I say, they're very emotional. So the slight sign of bad news, they're capitulating their bags more than we are. Trust me. Okay. Altcoin index, it's showing that it's still Bitcoin season, obviously, and still showing that it's a good time to be buying altcoins. Any of these times before, you know, going back to, you know, 2023, 2022, summer of 2021, even in that bull market, yeah, that was a good time to buy altcoins, because that led up to the end of the bull cycle, you know, which was in the Q4 up to November, December, was a good time to be holding altcoins. You'd be taking profits there. So regardless of what's going on in the news, you definitely want to use this chart as a good indication of when to be buying altcoins. None of these times at the lows ever felt good to be buying altcoins. They made you feel sick, and if you feel sick in your stomach when you're making those buys, it is probably a good buy. On the retail indicators on Into the Cryptoverse, looking at new YouTube views, we declined a lot down from where we were around the elections, around that December 2024, when everyone was enjoying meme season, and then we saw this decline down. But the YouTube views are holding steady around this, just under 1 million views. I think at the moment it's saying 798,000 views. So they look like they're holding steady. People are not going away, but we have not yet seen one of these big expansions like we saw in 2021, for views. And I'd expect, with the amount of people that are on YouTube these days, you would expect that to go a lot higher, and it's not. And it's the same for if you go for new YouTube subscribers. We saw these highs here back in November and December, and it fell off a cliff, went down, and it seemed to have held down there. And it looks like they're trying to make a bounce here. So we could see some retail activity, some more interest from new retail, or even the old retail that have just lost interest with the prices not going mental for altcoins. When prices are going nuts, that's when they come back. Remember, number goes up first, then retail get seriously involved and interested. Same for Twitter views, We saw a decline from those highs around November, December, and then it's held flat, and it looks like it's trying to make a recovery because, it's reached those maximum lows there. That was like around 31st of March, and then extreme low around 17th of May. And then you can see that it was starting to try and recover there. So, Then we've got M2, everyone's favorite subject at the moment, Bitcoin's still following this, Look, if we can zoom in and say, look, maybe it's not following it there, but this is not an indicator where you should be following exactly every swing and movement. Although some of us like to, I was highlighting here 6th of June that I noticed that it was a 72-day lag on the two compared to Bitcoin, and that looked like a low there on that chart. We saw that ahead because remember, this yellow line here is the M2, and we can see that weeks in advance, around 12 weeks in advance. So when I reset the indicator to 72-day lag, it comes back and it sort of marks those lows, that low exactly there. But like I say, this is more of a directional indicator on a macro time frame, So you really want to be zoomed out looking at that, really. But like I say, it's following it up. We could, here we've got marked off that the top on that indicator is around the 23rd of August, okay? So very choppy up climb there, which Bitcoin could follow. And is that going to be a top, or are we going to see this keep going? As this plays out, I'll keep following it. And you can keep following it with me, and we can see where this goes. But this has been quite a reliable indicator so far. It won't always be, like I keep saying, but let's follow it for now. And if you're liking this video so far, please don't forget to click like, subscribe, and I'd appreciate your following very much. Then we go into DXY. DXY is now right at this low of 97. I'm expecting this could go right down to sort of around 92, even down as low as 89. Will it break these lows in this cycle? We don't know. I'm looking at some of the things I'm looking at in the near term is if I zoom out, you've got this long trend line coming from back in 2014. It tapped it here on in 2021, and that goes back further, and it's the DXY is coming down to this line. Then you've got this 800 EMA. I don't know if you can see it. It's very faint and dark on your screen, I know, but it's heading down to it. Could it go down to there and hold? It went down below it last time, and that was in 2021. And then you've got back in early 2018, which was the end of the 2017 bull run, it went down to it. So, could we see a bounce in DXY in the near term? Then we see the fall down, and that could see a correction in risk assets like stocks, Bitcoin, etc. Then we see the drop, and that drop gives the power for all markets to be running and get that final bull phase that we're all waiting for. USTD dominance. So here we are. It's fighting to try and get above this 4.8% level. It looks like it's just getting rejected there, but let's see. Really, we want to see it fall below this 4.6 level, and then we want to see it come down to this 3.7 level. And if it loses that, we've got a lot of fun coming away, that means a lot of stable coins are getting sold into altcoins and Bitcoin. And here we are, another chart for Bitcoin I'm looking at. So let's bring up the trading view indicator that I like, because it brings up all the EMAs that I like, which is your 5, 13, 50, 200 and 800 EMAs. And we can see Bitcoin here, and this is on my diagonals chart. You can see Bitcoin found resistance on this chart here, and it's come down to the 50 again yesterday, tapped it again. The 5 and 13 on the daily are rolling over. So could that mean we're going down lower? Who knows? But if we go on to the weekly, we're still looking very, very bullish. 5 and 13's expanded, 50 ticking up. Looks like it could go parabolic. If it breaks through that diagonal level there, which is currently sitting around 112k on our all-time high, then we could be seeing price move up to around 100 and something k. And that would be all good, wouldn't it? Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance is still trying to get above this 64 level. Yeah. Since it dropped down around the 8th of May, it took that big capitulation downwards, and everyone thought it was over for Bitcoin dominance. Well, Bitcoin dominance has started to climb back up, but let me point you to this trend line here that it held from around January, and it bounced on it a couple of times. When it came down hard, it just went straight through it. Yeah, it went straight through it, like it cut through it like butter. Yeah, and then it's got reclaimed this 63% level, and then it's made it up towards the trend line again, and it's used it as resistance. So old support became new resistance, and now it's sort of straying away from it. It looks like it's failed to get over it, and it looks like it could be starting to roll over, So, but let's keep an eye on that one, yeah? Let's get into some of the altcoins now. So we're looking at ETH against Bitcoin. We're going to look at Solana against, Ethereum. And we're going to look at SUI against Solana, okay? So Ethereum against Bitcoin is, well, look, it had this massive low here and got very depressing for ETH BTC. The big bounce has been in this like kind of bull flag pattern, and it's been chopping around ever since. It just can't make up its mind whether it wants to go up or go down. What I will point you to is this trend line here. It's tapped it about 1, 2, 3 times. Could it be coming down to a third time? What's sitting below it, which is really interesting, is the 50-day EMA. So could it wick below the trend line, hit that, and then make the move up? That's looking good, though. It's looking good for ETH BTC. Then we've got Solana versus ETH. Solana versus ETH looks like it's losing its 50-week EMA, which is not a good sign for Solana against ETH. That doesn't mean it's not going to do well, but does it mean that ETH's going to outperform Solana for a bit? However, there's a couple of things I'd like to point you to, and that is that ETH, however, there's a couple of things I'd like to point your attention to. So you've got this trend line, which has existed since August 2021. Okay, got close to it there, and then it found it as support, but then broke it. Yeah, it fell straight through, spent so much time under it, and then it found it as resistance again, broke through, then it held it as support again, and now it's heading down to it again. So although I see that as quite bearish that it's lost a 50-week EMA on Sol versus ETH, okay, it's also got the 100 EMA, yeah, creeping just below this trend line as well. So I've got a feeling we could be coming down here for Sol versus ETH, and then maybe we get the bounce there. It could wick below the 100 EMA. You've got the 200 EMA just forming here. I do think that ETH could steal the show for a little while if it's as we do this transfer into alt season. Yeah, you've seen it before. I've also showed it where you've got the flow of risk. Yeah, it starts off everyone's in Bitcoin, then they flow into Ethereum, then they flow into big caps, then into lower caps, and then you get the meme season and all of that. It's all part of this cyclical behavior of risk flow during bullish times. Okay. And the same goes, it goes the opposite when things get bearish, you know, people start selling their altcoins into like safer assets to be more secure. They go back into like Bitcoin, Solana, ETH, stuff that they want to hold for a long time, or they think would last a bear market, would survive a bear market. And then as they get more scared, they get into Bitcoin and go back into dollars. And it's so that flow of risk can flow both directions. Okay. But yeah. And then we've got SUI versus ETH. Now, SUI versus ETH looks like it's, you know, it had this big W pattern here. Yeah. It broke out, retested, and made a nice run. Okay. It broke out. It found this resistance here at 0.014, broke out, had a massive pump up to 0.021, and then it's fell down ever since. The 5 and 13 weekly have crossed bearish, and it's heading down to the 50-week EMA. Will it find support there? And remember, this is when you're looking at these charts, don't start thinking, oh, SUI's, you know, bearish and everything. This is SUI against ETH, yeah? These altcoins are moving against each other. These are altcoin versus altcoin pairs, okay? It's no reason to sell your bag, because what happens is altcoins in a bull market, they pop like popcorn, one at a time, you know, they all take their turns. It's like a big rotation and flow of capital moving around them. If you don't want to get chopped up in all the trading of it, just hold your bags. As long as you're confident fundamentally and technically on their USD pairs that they're going to have a bull run, then just hold your bags on those. Yeah, you can obviously trade these pairs if you want to, but I find it better and less emotional to get caught up in all of that. Then we've got SUI against Solana. Yeah. So SUI against Solana had this massive inverse head and shoulders. Yeah. There you go. There's one shoulder. There's the head. There's the other shoulder. And then it broke out, and it's been holding, and it's held the neckline twice, bounced, and it's holding there well. SUI against Solana, I think, looks excellent right now. And I think it's going to outperform in the coming months. So if you're holding SUI, then good on you. It's been a great one this cycle so far, and I think it's going to continue to do so. Then we're going to look at my portfolio now. As you can see, I like SUI and Solana, and my Sol bag was bigger than my SUI bag at first, but obviously SUI outperformed Solana for a period of time, and it's my biggest bag, and I'm very confident in that. And the way I break down my portfolio is I like to. I'm not a Bitcoin maxi. I love Bitcoin, and I'm always going to hold some of it, but I have spent more time accumulating altcoins because I believe they're going to give me superior gains in the long run. And I believe this is going to be a fantastic bull run for altcoins. And so how I like to prepare my portfolio is I like to really believe in certain layer ones. I like to believe in the technology behind it, the user experience, look at the fundamentals, assess like things like TVL growth, on-chain activity as well. And I like to spot which chains are also got really strong communities, you know, like a lot of the crypto is all about hype or narratives around certain projects, and I believe that you've got to have that. You've got to have that community in order for a project to do really well. And I see that with Solana and SUI. So I was a massive advocate for Solana from the bear market. I was also into it in the 2021 cycle. But I really got when Solana went right to its lows of around $8 or $9. I started aping it from then, and I won't say all my buys were there. You know, a lot of them were like 25 around that mark. I saw that it had survived the FTX saga, and it was going to come back strong. So I started loading up on Solana and Solana altcoins amongst other altcoins, and SUI. I got into SUI. I think it was early last year. What I noticed, I was on X, and I was noticing that a lot of the old Solana community were getting very hyped up about this new coin called SUI. That's when I started looking into it more, and then that's when I saw who the developers were, you know, the ex-Facebook team, DM team, and got strongly into it. And then when I saw like the likes of Raoul Pal and that, you know, really following it, I got really into it even more. And so how I like to manage my portfolio is have the layer ones, then get right into the ecosystems, see what's being built on it, AI protocols, DEXs, DeFi, all of those sorts of things, and then throw a few memes in. So what I tend to do is my bigger bag will be layer ones. Then I'll be on to the dexes and seeing what the most popular dex is, what dex is being used the most. That's decentralized exchanges, by the way, if you didn't know. And then you've got DeFi, decentralized finance apps, dApps, where you can stake, you can provide liquidity, all of those sorts of things. And from them, I'm looking at like how much TVL they've got, and I'll go use DeFi Llama to see things like that. So I tend to have layer one, DEX, then a DeFi play, and then maybe I might look at some other things like AI, DePIN, like utility projects, and I will build like a portfolio within each ecosystem. So I've got a portfolio of SUI, which is like I've got SUI as the layer one, I've got Cetus as the DEX, I've got things like Scallop and Navex as the DeFi plays, and then I've got some meme coins on there, things like Blub, Sui Man, Lofi. And then for Solana, then I've got for Solana, I've got two dexes on Solana actually. I've got Jupiter and Radium. I think they're both very competitive with each other. I do believe they're going to be very successful. So I'm holding those. And then AI plays, I'm into Nasana, Render. And then you've got like meme coins on there. I've got so many meme coins on Solana, to be honest. I couldn't count them. But they're all a very small part of my portfolio. And here, if we look at this now, go back to my portfolio here, right? Okay. So I've got Solana and Sui as my main bags. Okay. I've got Cardano, which I've had since the last cycle. I'm a very strong believer in Charles Hoskinson and what he does. And that's quite unusual because a lot of people that are into Sui and Solana, are haters of Cardano. And that's okay. If they don't like it, that's fine. But I still see that the technology is great, and I still say it's got a great community. A lot of it's staked, which shows that the community believe in it and they're holding it and they're not selling their bags. And I believe it's one that can get the attraction of new retail as well, because very strong believer in Charles Hoskinson and what he does. And that's quite unusual. If you look at Cardano now, although it might not be as fast or as cheap as Solana and Sui yet, also it's got this great DEX called MinSwap, and it's got all the sorts of plays that you see on Solana and Sui. And then you've got Chainlink. Chainlink's obviously, the big oracle on Ethereum. So I don't hold that much Ethereum. I mainly hold protocols that are built on Ethereum that I believe will outperform Ethereum. I think Link's going to outperform Ethereum. I think Link could go to $100. It was at $40 in the last cycle. It's still looking strong. Yeah, so Link's a good play as well. Bitcoin, no, that's not Bitcoin BTC. That is Harry Potter, Sonic, Obama, Inu 10, a meme coin. Amazing community on there. They are, they're international. So it's a big community. Like there's people in America, Europe. Yeah, Africa's got a big following for it too. Near Protocol is another one that I really like. It's got a strong community. It's great tech. Its builders come from AI like innovation. It's got a great ecosystem. It's got dexes, it's got DeFi, it's got AI, it's got meme coins, and it's one, that could do very, very well. Obviously, I've got to have my Bitcoin. I haven't sold all my Bitcoin. You never sell all your Bitcoin. And what I have sold of my Bitcoin, I plan to put back into Bitcoin. So when I get my gains from my altcoins that I'm holding now, getting ready for that next alt season, as I'm taking profits, yes, some of my profits will go to dollars. Some of my profits will go back into Bitcoin. That will be like my hold forever bag. Yeah. And then Avalanche, I believe in that. It's the best EVM. It's one of the best protocols for gaming. We saw that with Gunzilla and Off the Grid, and it's got plenty more to come. Then you've got, like as I've already mentioned, Render, which is probably my top AI play. I think for GPU cloud, it's unbeatable. Nasana's very much there with it. Injective, I see Injective as a really strong protocol on Cosmos blockchain. I think it's the strongest on Cosmos. So I was a strong believer in the Cosmos ecosystem in the last cycle. I still believe in it, but I also found that the token Atom of Cosmos doesn't have great utility. So I went for a token that did have more utility, better tokenomics, and we're going to dive more into the injective tokenomics on another show. Then we've got Deep on Sui, Deep Book, yeah, they're the main liquidity provider for Sui, SPX 6900. That's a meme coin on Solana, well, actually on Ethereum, but I've got the wormhole version, which is on Solana. It tracks the same price as the one on Ethereum, but it may not have as much liquidity. But I don't think it needs to have that much as much liquidity. It's still got plenty of liquidity for you to trade in and out of. I'm not a huge wow with millions of dollars in there, so yeah, it's fine for me to hold that version on Solana on Phantom Wallet because it's cheaper transactions and yeah. Then we've got Arweave, which has not been doing too well recently, but I believe it's going to come back. It's got a lot going for it. They're building their own layer one, which is great, and it's one of the best cloud services for crypto. Yeah, blockchain cloud services. Then we've got Bartcoin. Bartcoin, it's done me well so far. I think I did about a 10x with it, sold it, and then bought it back when it was at its lows. So yeah, can't complain about Fartcoin. I think with a name like that, you'd be crazy not to be holding some of that before the next retail run up comes, because it's gonna just go nuts. When people start looking down that list of what coins they can buy and they see Fartcoin, retail will be all over it. The memes will be running for it. I mean, it started off as like a not so serious AI play, but I think just people just buy it for the name and love trading it. And the reason why I bought back into it was because I saw it getting listed on major exchanges, and I thought, people are going to be loving to leverage trade that, and it's going to be great. I've already mentioned Cetus as my number one DEX from Sui. Despite what happened, their hack recently, a couple of $100 million was taken. I think the team managed to get back 160 million of that and freeze it. Yeah, they're not going anywhere. Sui, the whole Sui team, the Miston Labs team, they've shown full support for Cetus. It's not going anywhere. It's going to do extremely well in this cycle. Then talking about DEXs, we've got Uniswap. Uniswap is the best DEX on Ethereum. It's the most popular. It's just beaten the SEC. It's got off of its court case, and it's going to survive. The more that Uniswap is used for trading and activity, they're going to be sharing some of their profits with the coin holders. So I think that's a great thing. Polygon Matic, held that since 2021. That was one of my best gainers in the 2021 cycle. I did well with it. They've got a lot going on. They're great at building partnerships. When you saw them in the bull market of 2021, the amount of partnerships they were getting as the number one layer two on Ethereum, I still think they're up there with the top layer twos on Ethereum, with the likes of Optimism and Arbitrum. And the thing is, Polygon, it's getting known as its own chain as such, even though it's using Ethereum technology. It's a go-to chain for big business, and they're going to be using it. So yeah, it's going to still hold that. And then I've got 23% in other things. Yeah, I like to speculate on a lot of different coins, and this is the point I want to get to. Some people would look at this portfolio and say, "Oh my God, why are you holding so many coins? Why are you holding so many different things?" Well, because I believe in strong diversification when you're in crypto. Yeah, you can have your big bags of your big protocols and diversify amongst them. But like I say, and in crypto, it is a wild west still, and it's such a new space that anything can happen. I won't lie. The other day when the Cetus hack happened, I was like, "Oh, is that over for Cetus?" I've been around. I've seen FTX go down. I saw Luna collapse. Luckily, I managed to get a 10x out of Luna and sell all my bag before it dropped in the last cycle. You had the Celsius saga. So many different things can go on in a bull market with these protocols, or even worse as you go into the bear market. But you just want to be heavily diversified. The more coins you're in, I'm not saying buy every coin or have 100 different coins, but the more diversified you are, the more you reduce your risk. It's risk management in a way when you diversify that much. And also, when it comes to things like meme coins or low caps, I believe in the scattergun approach. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like just go and buy 100 different coins and, you know, but like just spread bet. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm still telling you to do your fundamental research. I've done my fundamental research on all of these things, even that other 23%. I've done fundamental research. Even if I'm putting a small bit of capital in, I still look into them. And yeah, so like with lower caps, you're even more at risk of something going wrong with them. You know, they might get rug pulled. The token founders might pull the liquidity. They could get hacked. You know, they haven't shown the test of time yet. So I believe in that good diversification across many coins. So we're going to wrap it up there. We'll have another look at my portfolio another day, and we'll go into things a bit deeper. I'll do some shows where I break down and do a deep dive into ecosystems. I've already done one on Solana actually. If you want to go and check that out, where I covered Solana itself, looking at Render, Jupiter, Radium, and other coins built on Solana. So I've already done a deep dive on Solana. I'm definitely planning to do one on Sui, and I'm sure I'll do one on Cardano and other chains as well. So if you've enjoyed the show, don't forget to click like, subscribe, and give me a follow on all platforms. All the links are below. And I hope to see you again soon.